Good afternoon. You're listening to Gambling with an Edge. Now here are your hosts, Bob Dancer and Richard Munchkin.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Gambling with an Edge. I'm Bob Dancer.
And I'm Richard Munchkin.
Today, our guest is Norman Beck, a bridge player, among other things, who has an interesting gambling philosophy to life. Norman Beck, welcome to Gambling with an Edge.
Thanks for having me.
Definitely our pleasure. When did you get started gambling?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question. I apologize.
When did you get started gambling?
I was in the fourth grade. My grandfather got me started playing rummy and then cribbage and then gin, and then I discovered poker. And when I was in the fifth grade, I played marbles, and we played for keeps. So that was really when I first started gambling, was then. Of course, playing marbles was a skill-based game, really wasn't anything luck involved. But that's I was raised in a town in Oklahoma. And then when I was in the junior high, when I was in the seventh grade, I got a job as a dishwasher in a roadhouse. And I became the bartender, and then the owner got me started playing pool. It wasn't long before I was gambling a little bit on the pool table. I mean, I never was really what you'd call a hustler. I was just good enough to beat the Cowboys out of $2 or $3. So that was my first foray into risk.
When did you get started playing bridge?
When I graduated from high school, I got a football scholarship to Southeastern Oklahoma State University in Durant, Oklahoma, and went down there to play football and hated it, absolutely hated it. And the second semester I was there, I met a guy in the coffee shop and asked him if he wanted to play chess, and he said no, he found bridge was a much faster, quicker game, and asked me if I wanted to watch, and I said sure. And about that time, two guys sat down, and the four of them started playing, and I asked what the normal question is for a gambler. I said, what are y'all playing for? And they said, we're trying to win a rubber. And I thought, man, that's a weird thing for four grown men to be playing for. And I said, you're playing for a rubber? They said, no, we're trying to win a rubber. And I said, I don't understand. And he said, well, when you win 2 games, that's a rubber. And about that time, they bid, and the guy laid his hand down. I said, what's he doing showing everybody his hand? And he said, he's the dummy. And I thought, man, that's a rude thing to say to somebody. And I didn't realize that the terminology, the words, really got me interested. And so within about 2 weeks, I was pretty much hooked and have been ever since. I mean, I've been a real serious player since 1977.
When you started playing bridge, how did you get good?
It's a real good question. I would ask people. I was playing what they call duplicate. I was playing it in tournaments, and they had a local bridge club, and I was playing there. And I would ask people questions, what should I do with this hand? How should I have done that hand? And I would get 5 or 6 different answers, and I knew those couldn't be right. So finally I thought, well, I'll just ask who the best player is. I'll go find him. I'll cut into him, and in about 2 weeks, I'll be as good as he is. Well, it's been the longest 2 weeks of my life. But they told me about a guy named Byron Greenberg, who was kind of a bookie, I guess you'd say. He owned a nightclub where they did some gambling and stuff. And I went down, and I had to pay $20 to get a membership to get in to meet this guy. So I went in, and I said, I understand you're the best player in the state. He said, well, I don't know. He said, some people might say, and he gave another name. And he said, were you wanting to play for some money? And I said, no, I just want to learn how to play. And he gave me the best piece of advice I ever got, and I still follow it today. He said, play all you can play, read all you can read, always play with better players, and learn something every time you play. And I said, well, what else? He said, there is no what else. He said, that's it. Now, get out of my club. I said, yes, sir. I said, someday you and I will play. I said, I don't know how long it'll take, but someday you and I will play cards together. Took me about 3-4 years, but eventually I got to play with him. So that was how I got, and I always gravitated to the best players. There was a guy named Ernie Busby that his nickname was the Buzzard. And he taught me probably more about the game than anybody. I used to play in a card room in Tulsa. I played what was called option bridge, which is different than they play now. But he was a guy that was a hustler, played every day, and he played every short card game and dominoes. If you wanted to play hearts, he'd play hearts, spades, spades. You wanted to play gin, he'd play gin. It didn't matter. He would play with you. And he was really good. And he was the type guy that you didn't mind losing to him because he was just a friendly kind of a guy. And he became my first real mentor in bridge. So I was lucky.
So the bridge really changed the course of your life and brought you to what I want to get into, which is a company called SCA. And so could you tell us about how SCA happened and what it is?
Yeah. The best bridge player alive is a guy named Bob Hammond who lives in Dallas, Texas. And I was in Durant, which is only about 100 miles away, so I got to meet Bob early on and got to know him. And Bob was in the life insurance business. He sold life insurance. But he also his true passion is bridge, but he also likes to gamble. Big time sports bettor. And the guy came to him one day when he had this life insurance company, and he had a fishing contest where he tagged the fish. And he wanted to insure this tagged fish for a prize of $5,000, but he couldn't find anybody that would cover it. And so he asked Bob if Bob could find somebody, some insurance company that would take the risk. Bob couldn't find anybody. So he thought, well, $5,000 a tagged fish. So he told the guy, I'll do it. The guy said, well, how much? And Bob said, I'll charge you $750. Now, he had no idea if $750 was a good bet, a bad bet, or somewhere in between. He didn't know. So he wrote out a little 2-page contract, and they had the little fishing derby, and nobody caught the tagged fish. And at the end of the day, Bob thought, I wrote a 2-page contract. I got $750 cash in my pocket. I may be on to something. And so that's how he started. He called me and tried to get me to go to work for him twice. And both times I turned him down because I thought he was crazy. I thought, you can't make a living doing this kind of stuff. I just thought, third time he called, I was working for State Farm Insurance, and I hated my boss. I had a horrible, horrible boss. And he asked me if I wanted to come and go to work for him. And I said, yeah. So I came down and interviewed, and in about a week, I had moved to Dallas and been here for the last 25 plus years.
Now, I think one of the bets that you made that maybe most people have heard of is the billion with a B dollars if someone found the right symbol under a Pepsi cap. Is that right, how that went?
Not exactly. It was a promotion where it was like a lottery. You had to pick, I believe, get the right 6 numbers in order. Might have been the right first 8 numbers. But that's been a long time. And we had like an orangutan that drew the numbers out. And if you got them in the right order, you would have one, but that was our first $1 billion promotion. We've only done maybe 6 or 8 $1 billion promotions since I've worked here. We've done a lot. I mean, we do $1 million promotions on a daily basis, but billion still quite a bit of money.
Well, I'm assuming Bob Hammond doesn't have $1 billion in his pocket. Do you get insurance to insure you when you take these kind of bets, or do you just white knuckle it? Or
well, that's
that's
a really good question, and it varies from case to case. We have lots of different revenue streams that we use that I won't go into in great detail on how we do it, but we guarantee the money. I mean, we get it covered. In many ways, just like a bookie would cover if they got way too much money on one side of a game and the other, they find a place to, I think the term they use is lay it off. We don't say that. We're much more polite than that. But
reinsurance.
Reinsurance, that's right. Well, no, we don't say the word insurance either. We're not an insurance company. Insurance is a bad word. So we're not an insurance company in any way, shape, form, or fashion.
Now, one of the things I heard you say is, you've covered bets from, I think you said 42 cents to $1 billion. And I don't understand, why would someone need insurance on a bet that only pays 42 cents?
Well, because they had millions of them. So in other words, it wasn't one bet for 42 cents. It was, let's say, 1,000,000 42-cent bets. So now you're talking.
Oh, okay.
It was for an over redemption on a potato chip down in Mexico City, where if you bought a package of potato chips and then you sent in the UPC code, you would have a chance to win or to get a 42 cents back. They had to jump through a bunch of hoops. So they knew that it would come in at a certain number, but they didn't know if it would come in above that. So they had us cover the spread from, say, 100,000 bags of chips to 200,000, whatever. It varies from case to case, but it was really an over redemption. So it was, most of the time it's more than 42 cents.
But the thing about that is, what you're really betting on is, I guess, what you would call human nature. Like, how many people are going to go through the trouble to do this, and how do you put a price on those things? Because that's not just straight random math, right?
Right. Well, we do a lot of where you get in the mail, say a direct mailer for come into this car dealership to see if the key that we sent you starts the car.
Right. I've received those.
So we know through market research about what the response rate is on how many people on a 30,000 piece mailer will come and actually try it. And we know pretty close to what the math is. And so we charge, just like a casino would, we charge more than that. The simplest way to explain it is if we had 100 envelopes and we put $100 in one of them, the other 99 have nothing in them. And if you pick the envelope with $100, you win it. So my expected pay on that is $1 because there are 100 bags. You take one. So if I charge more than $1, I make money. If I charge less than $1, I go broke. So I charge you $3. If I do it 100 times, I took in $300. I had one winner for 100, and I had $200 to operate on and make a little profit. So no matter what we do, that's what the business model is always based on, is knowing what the expected payout is and charging a little bit more than that. And that's how we've been able to scratch out a living for almost 30 years.
Yeah,
So,
no, our audience is certainly familiar with expected value, and the part that I was missing was the market research, where you kind of know the percentage that is normal for those kind of things. That makes a lot of sense.
Well, but sometimes we don't. Like we had a guy call up one day that wanted to do Martini Mondays. We didn't know what do you mean Martini Mondays? And what he wanted to do was take martini glasses and have the bar patrons throw olives from a distance of 25 feet. If the olive went in the glass, they won 10 grand. Now, guys, there is no market research on throwing olives into glasses. So when the guy called and we said, well, give us a day. So I told one of the women here in the office, I said, go down to the store and buy 2 gallons of olives. Go to the liquor store, buy 2 martini glasses, drive your car up on the roof. And we took the afternoon and the whole staff went out. And for 4 hours, we threw olives at the glass.
Oh, that's great.
And after 4 hours and nobody had done it, we called the guy back and we said, yeah, we'll cover that. So that was kind of a fun, unusual, one that was particularly fun. There was a guy who called who was an escapologist. I didn't know what an escapologist was exactly, and he told me that he was like Harry Houdini, that he could get tied up with rope, a 100-foot piece of rope, and if he had sold this reality show to one of the networks, that if he couldn't escape, the person that tied him up would win $1 million. And the reality TV show thought this is a great idea. They bought off on it. The only problem was the guy didn't have $1 million. So he called me up and he asked me if we would insure it, cover it. And I said, well, I don't know, give me a day. So I made a couple of phone calls, and I had never been tied up with a 100-foot piece of rope. And so I went down to the Walmart and I bought a 100-foot piece of rope. I was pulling it through the store, and the manager asked me what I was doing. Why was I pulling that rope through the store? And I said, well, did you ever try to push one? And so I called the guy back, and he said, this is the safest bet you will ever make. I can always get out. I said, I can't cover this bet. He said, what do you mean you can't cover it? He said, I can always get out. I said, that's why I can't cover it. He said, well, why not? I said, well, because if you can always get out, I said, you could always stay in. I said, how do I know that you didn't go in halves with the guy that tied you up, and you all split it down the middle, and he gets 500,000 and you get 500,000, and I end up paying $1 million. He said, I never thought of that. I said, that's why you get us tied up for a living. That's why I sit here and think about stupid stuff.
Well, also, if he always gets out, he wouldn't need insurance, right?
Except the network sort of would required it. I mean, that was part of their contractually. That was part of the deal. He had to do it. But
so you ended up not taking that one.
I ended up not taking that one. That's right.
I mean, in many of these kind of bets, this is a danger, right? Of somebody trying to scam you in some way. How do you protect yourself there?
Well, imagine if it's a contest where it is subjective in nature, we won't do it. For instance, if you wanted to have a contest on, we once got asked to insure hog sperm. Now, we didn't have much experience with hog sperm, but a guy had these world champion hogs. And if you bred to one of his hogs and the offspring won like the grand champion at some major national event, you would win $50,000. Well, we couldn't insure that because the best looking pig to me may not be the best looking pig to you. And there's no way I know which pig looks best. So we stay out of the pig, judging contest. We once were approached by, if somebody won 3 poker tournaments in a row, they would win a $5 million prize. And we had to say no to that because the first one's free. Somebody's going to win the first one, no matter what. So it's really only winning 2 in a row. And for $5 million, me knowing the poker world a little bit and the card world, we were worried that it might be too much of a temptation for somebody to dump. And so we had to say no to that. But most of the things we do are set up in such a way, it's like preventative medicine, that you don't know you don't know all the pieces. So you would be hard pressed to game the system beforehand. Not saying it couldn't happen, but we do our very best to prevent that sort of thing from happening.
So you mean the participants maybe don't know all the exact details until it actually comes time to...
Yeah, well, here's an example. We do a thing called a dollar bill drop, where I'd come to Las Vegas and I'd spend $101 bills at various establishments in town. And not a lot of places you can spend a $1 bill. I mean, you could go to, Olympic Gardens or Ray Flynn's place or something. I don't know, but you, then if you find a bill that gets announced by a radio station, you win $1 million. So let's say you have the bill with serial number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If that happens to be the serial number that you have and they call it out, you won $1 million and I pay the money. Well, what you don't know, you know what the serial number of the bill is, but you don't know what the bill looks like. And
probably looks like a $1 bill.
But I know things about the bill you don't. I know which mint it was minted at. I've made some minor changes to the bill that you don't know about.
Oh, so you had people try to scam you by changing a bill to match the number.
Right. So in other words, just because you had a bill with the right serial number doesn't mean you won, because you have to have the same bill that I put in play. And to keep me honest, the radio station has a photocopy of the bill that we've escrowed before the event so that they can go and see it and say, yeah, well, they can obviously tell it's not the same bill. In fact, I had a kid do that where he took a bill, erased the last 6 digits of the serial number and put in the right numbers of his own and then claimed that he had the winning bill. And when I got a photocopy of it and I contacted this kid. I said, it's very interesting. I said, the Secret Service is going to be with me. We want to talk to you about the provenance of this bill tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. He never showed up. So
surprise.
One of us was bluffing. I don't know which one, but one of us was.
Are there ever any promotions you insure where the intended audience is just one person?
Not normally, but we have had that one time. I had a promotion. I won't mention where it was at, but there was a player that was I guess the right term would be a whale, and they did $1 million promotion just for this one person. You got to be a really good player in order to get that.
So what do you mean? How did that work? What kind of promotion was it?
It was like 20 bags, and if you picked the right 4 of the 20, you won $1 million. And they had money amounts inside each bag, and if they added up to $1,000, then you won $1 million. If it didn't, whatever they added up to, you won that. But they did that just for this really good player that they had done a lot of things for this player besides that.
Was this for a casino?
Yeah.
Now, this boggles my mind. A casino is supposed to be in the gambling business. They should understand, like, expected value. Basically, they should understand exactly what you understand and know that they have a bigger edge if they just book the action themselves.
Well, yes and no. There are good business reasons for the casino not to cover it. If you're a publicly traded company and you have $1 million loss during a particular quarter, it could affect the outcome of your stock for that quarter. So rather than do that, they can come to me, pay me a set amount of money, give up a little bit, and I make a little bit, but they don't have to worry about it. And I set up the whole thing. I do everything. They don't have to worry. So I understand why they do what they do and the way they do it. And I'm sort of glad that they do that, because it lets me have a job. And
of course. Yeah, of course. Sure.
Now, when this lady opened up 4 bags, potentially to make $1 million, I would think you or one of your associates would have been there when this happened.
I was there. I was there. In fact, I took the bags with me. They never left my care, custody, and control. I was there the whole time. I will tell you one funny thing about that. There was a promotion in Atlantic City where I had met with the vice president, and I had $1 million in my briefcase. And we were going to do $1 million blackjack promotion. And she had taken me down to the employee dining room to eat dinner. She'd given me the card, and she left me, and I'm having dinner. Got $1 million, and I'm waiting to do this promotion. And I'm about halfway through dinner, and a woman walked up to me, and she said, "Where's your badge?" And I said, "I don't have one." She said, "You work here at the casino?" And I said, "No, ma'am, I don't." And she proceeded to cuss me and use words that only a sailor would have understood. And she 86'd me on the spot, out of the casino. And I said, "Ma'am, I'm happy to leave." I said, "Would you do me one favor?" And she said, "No." I said, "Well, would you at least call the vice president?" I pulled her business card out, and tell her that you're not going to be able to have that New Year's Eve $1 million promotion that y'all have been touting for the last 3 months, because you just 86'd the man with $1 million out of the casino.
Uh-huh.
Why was she 86'ing you?
Because she thought that I was a bum that was in eating a free meal in the employee cafeteria. So when she figured out who I was, she un-86'd me. And when it came time for the promotion, the same woman that had cussed me out was there to help administer the promotion. She was the head of security. And I'm there with the vice president. And the vice president said, "Norman, I want to introduce you to whatever this person's name was." And I stuck my hand out. I said, "Very nice to meet you." And I never, until just right now on this particular podcast, I never mentioned that to anybody. And she became my bestest friend, because I didn't throw her under the bus, and I didn't hold a grudge over it. There's no reason to. I mean, she was just trying to do her job the best way she thought she could, and I didn't really matter to me. I mean, it was fine. So, but it was pretty funny.
So
we have more questions.
Oh, go ahead.
We
Bob.
have more questions for Norman Beck, but first we need to do some commercials. The South Point has more than 10,000 games, returning more than 99%. This is more than anyone else has. The promotion in April is called the $500,000 plus Swipe, Spin, and Win. Every Monday through Thursday between 3 a.m. and 11 p.m., earn 500 or more same-day points on slot machines or video poker and swipe at the kiosk. All you do is once a day. Prizes range from $50 free play. They have resort credit, a Yeti tumbler, mystery prizes, restaurants, and bonus points. Blackjack Apprenticeship is having some boot camps in May, and there are still some openings. These boot camps will help you get better at counting cards at blackjack. You will also meet some players who are out there doing this as a living. And the networking part of it is important and valuable. Frequently, Colin Jones asks people, successful people, to show up at the boot camp. And Tommy Hyland has been there. Andy Block has been there. For some reason, he had me there to talk about also playing video poker. And there's there's different every time. And it's a networking opportunity. Videopoker.com is the best place to play lots of games. The game of the week is Good Times Pay. This game is a triple play game. This game can be played 6 coins to 10 coins a line. And what you buy by the coins are multipliers that come out at random in 100% fashion, meaning that the average, if you're paying 2 coins per line, playing max coins per line, which is 10 coins, the average multiplier is 2. If you're playing 9 coins, the average multiplier is 1.8. At the South Point, the best version of this is 25-cent NSU Deuces Wild. It's a 99.73% game, and you can play it between 375 with no multipliers at all, up to 750 with max multipliers. Okay, so we're back talking to Norman Beck. Soon after we set up this interview, Norman, you called me 2 or 3 or 4 times to talk about video poker. I have the suspicion that this wasn't just random, that you do this all the time. Tell us how this works.
How video poker works? Well, it's a game that you have inside the casino.
Thank you. I'm just a beginner at this. Tell me more.
Right.
People who you think are experts, is that something you do a lot?
I do. I'm a really big student of cutting into people that know more than I do about subjects. I love to learn about everything, and I am pretty good at being able to figure out a way to get people to talk to me. It's something that I'm pretty good at. I have
it's a really valuable skill.
My persona is totally, I'm totally non-threatening. You would think I'm a rube or a hayseed, and that I wouldn't be able to spell cat if you spotted me the C and the T, but that may not be true. So I'm a big fan of the gambling world, because so much of my life is around bridge. I took a tremendous interest in the Stones Casino when they had the cheating scandal with Mike Postal or something like that.
Yeah, Postal, I think is the pronunciation.
And I found it humorous, to be quite candid with y'all. I found it humorous that he was able to play for so long before anybody snapped to it. In the bridge world, he wouldn't have made one session. He would not have made one session. And I read what the tournament director at that casino said to the woman. I think, can't remember her name right offhand. I think it was Veronica Brill, I believe was her name, I think. Anyway, she was, and he said, "Oh no, there's no way there could be any cheating. We're 100% safe." It's 100%, gentlemen. There's not 100% of anything, and for you to think that your game is 100% safe, that tells me how stupid you are. He's an idiot. He was.
Two things for our listeners who aren't up to speed here. There was a big scandal where they were live streaming a game from a casino, I believe, in Northern California, and they had whole card cameras, and the allegations were that the information of the whole cards was being relayed to this player named Mike Postal, who I think then is suing them for defamation or something. But this is a big scandal in the poker world, and if you Google it, you will find it. But, I have to say, Norm, I have met a fair number of cheaters, and not only do these guys not want to have, like, a losing day, they don't want to lose a hand. And they just do things that are completely stupid because they're unwilling to, not win every single hand they have the opportunity to win.
Well, it boils down to what an old-time hustler told me one time, that the problem with people like that have a true edge is that they win the money too quick.
Yep. And
that's what happened to him. Now, one of the things that I watched quite a bit of the video on him. In fact, I watch a lot of video for the Bridge World where they have a suspected cheater. I'm one of the people they call to take a look at that sort of stuff. So I've watched, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of people that are suspected of cheating. And what I'm always looking for is what I call uniformity of movement. And that is, if you do anything that's not uniform, you're suspect. And this guy, first of all, if you're the world's greatest poker player, if you played as good as he was, why are you playing in a 1-3 game? I'm sorry, if you're that good, the people I know that are that good, they're playing higher than that. And the other thing is, if you're that good, why would you only play during the televised event? Why are you going to come play that? As soon as the televised event's over with, you're gone. Guys, I've been around players a lot, and I promise you, people that play really good, they play longer than for 30 minutes or an hour for the time of a TV show. They're willing to play for as long as you've got money. And he wasn't doing that. And it was pretty obvious that he was getting the information off of his cell phone, because every hand he was looking at it down in his lap where his cell phone was at. We have a method in bridge that we use. If I think you're a cheater, and we have a lot of situations that come up where, for the sake of people who don't play bridge, it doesn't matter what game it is, but we'll talk about bridge. Let's say that I know you have a 50-50 choice. Either a spade or a heart is the right suit to play. One or the other, spade or heart, but you have no other information. It's a basic coin flip. Well, if you get it right, it's no big deal. If you get it right twice, it doesn't mean a lot. But I had a case recently where a couple had 2,000 hands. So we're talking about the same as 2,000 coin flips. They were right 96% of the time. They're cheating. You can't take a coin flip and be right 96% of the time and not have a wire. It's not possible. So I found it interesting that this guy won for so long before anybody snapped to what was involved.
Yeah, I'd like to go back to some of the more unusual cases you've had, through the promotions and stuff, because you've done some weird ones.
We have done some really weird ones. I slept with a bull in Montana. That was pretty odd. There was a bull called Bodacious that was a bounty bull for the PBR, which is the Professional Bull Riders Association. And if the rider came up and rode Bodacious for 8 seconds, then I would pay out $100 grand. So I went up and slept with this bull. I didn't know it was in my job description, but it was. And basically to make sure nobody doped the bull, nobody overfed the bull, nobody abused the bull in any way. I was a babysitter. I mean, that's just one way to put it. I mean, and the guy didn't ride him, but that was a pretty odd one. We've also done that with where a bull would go to the bathroom. We call that bovine.
Now, how does that work?
Bovine bingo. And all it really is, you take a rodeo arena and you mark off 100 squares. And before the event, you pre-select a number from 1 to 100. And if the bull happens to go to the bathroom in that one particular square, then the contestant would win a big amount of money. It would be no different than doing a bingo ball blower with 100 balls. And if you get the right ball comes up, you win the big prize. So in effect, the bull was nothing more than a random number generator, just in a little different case. But, talking about...
What if the bull doesn't have to go? Do you have to wait like hours for him to, have the urge?
Yeah. So, some people would say it was a kind of a crappy promotion.
Yes.
But we...
You and Bob are cut from the same cloth with the jokes.
Yeah, well, there was a case during the G2E show a number of years ago where a guy came into one of the station's properties, played bingo, and he won $600. You win $600 at a bingo. I mean, so what?
Yeah.
Happens all the time. Guy came back 2 days later and he won $600 again. Well, but he did something that bingo players don't do. He didn't tip the bingo runner that paid him the money. Bingo players are superstitious. They always tip, especially when they win a jackpot. He didn't. So she had surveillance snap a picture. Then she contacted the company. It was called Game Tech. They were out of Reno. And they would, you go in and play bingo and you could rent out an iPad. It's not an iPad, but basically it's a little small computer. And so you could play, instead of being able to dial, say, 20 card faces, you could play 100 card faces or 50 card faces. And whichever one's closest to winning is the one that shows. So she had the salesman from Game Tech come in, and the guy who had won the 2 jackpots was the computer programmer for that company. So what happened was, it was the guy we back on, okay?
Yep.
Okay, so what it was the programmer. He had put in a back door into this system. So now he could come and pay for 10 card faces and play 2,000 card faces. So he could basically always win. Now, the reason I was real interested in this is because I'd put as much as $1 million on that particular piece of equipment.
Wow.
So here's a guy that had a method that he could have won $600 every day of the year and never gotten caught if he would have just gone to different casinos over the course of a year, make it a route, or have his wife go, or not. But he didn't. He had to win the money too quick. The guy actually he committed suicide. He jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge. But and gaming controls shut him down for a few days and whatnot. But that was one that was pretty. But once again, uniformity of movement came into play, and the bingo manager was able to figure out what she didn't figure out what happened, but she knew something had happened, or thought that there was a possibility, and sure enough, she was right.
Rumors are that you have given a TED Talk. What did you talk about?
I talked for about 13 minutes.
Okay.
Now,
what did you do in minute 4?
I will tell you about the worst bet I ever made in my life. Now, everybody that listened to this podcast at some point has made some kind of a bet. I bet as much as $1 billion. But that's not the biggest bet I ever made. The biggest bet I ever made was I bet on my life. And it's sort of twice. And that was really not very smart. I like to play bridge, and I won't gamble at very many things, but if you want to gamble at bridge and you let me pick my partner, I'll gamble with you at bridge for pretty much whatever you want to play for. And I was playing at a little tournament here in Dallas, and there was a guy who was in the tournament who was my doctor, my personal physician, when I first moved to Dallas. Now, he was not a good player. But in bridge, you get judged, you get ranked, and you can become what's called a life master. And if you become a life master, you win what are called master points. In order to be a life master, you have to have 300 points. Well, this guy had just made life master. And when I was at this event, and I told him, congratulations. And we sat down to play at some point. Now, I'm playing on a team with 3 other guys. He's playing on a team with 3 other guys. I don't know even who those 3 other guys are. I don't know them. But I know who he is, and I know who my 3 guys are. And it would be comparable to having, let's say, you were going to play poker, and your 3 guys were Moneymaker and Phil Ivey and Daniel Negreanu. And he's playing with 3 guys you don't know, and you know you're way better than he is. So he said, we need to make a bet. Before we play, we need to make a bet on this particular match. And I'm thinking he's going to want to bet a Coke or a lunch or dinner or $100 or something. And I said, okay, what'd you have in mind? He said, if you win, you get free medical care for the next 10 years. You won't pay anything when you come to see me.
Wow.
if I win, you have to teach my son how to be a good magician. Which magic is another area that I have a hobby, and it's one area I know quite a bit about. So, I mean, this is a big bet. I mean, we're talking about a bet that could be worth, I don't know what free medical care is for 10 years, but it's substantial.
Yeah. Could be hundreds of thousands. I mean.
Right. Yeah. And so I looked at him and I said, you got a bet? I took it with basically no thought. I said, you have a bet. And to his credit, he lost. To his credit, he paid, sort of. Problem was, I had 2 medical conditions that he didn't catch that both could have proved to be fatal. So that was the dumbest bet I ever made, because I made a dumb bet with a stupid doctor. He wasn't very good. I didn't know it at the time. He's since died. He had a stroke and died before the 10 years was up. But that leads to the TED Talk. So I have a significant other, my girlfriend / wife, partner. We've been together for about 20 years. About 8 years ago, I'd become deaf in my right ear. And at night, we'd lay in bed, and she would say something, and I'd say, huh? What? And she kept telling me to go get my hearing checked, and I wouldn't do it. Finally, she brought me a business card and said, go get your hearing checked. Well, I went to get my hearing checked, not because I thought I needed to, but because I wanted to quit hearing her tell me to go get my hearing checked. She was just nagging me something awful, just really bad. So I did it to get her to quiet down a little bit. So I went in and I got my hearing checked. And the guy said, you're going to need to go get an MRI. And I said, okay. I said, when do we need to do that? He said, you're scheduled in 45 minutes. And that made me nervous. Made me real nervous, actually. But I went, and he made me an appointment to go see this other doctor. And the doctor called me and said, you need to come in to see me today. This other doctor after I had the MRI. And I said, what time do I need to come in? And he said, doesn't matter. I'll see you whenever you get here. But you need to get here today. I didn't like that sound of that either. So when I got there, instead of going in like the exam room where you go in to sit down and they look at you, he had me go into his office where they got all them leather books and all the awards and everything. I'll go in there and he closes the door. Gentlemen, let me tell you something. You have a doctor that takes you in and don't ask. You don't have to wait. He puts you in his office and he closes his door. It ain't good.
That's for sure.
So now I sit down, and the guy said, I know what your problem is. He said, you have an acoustic neuroma. He said, you know what acoustic is? And I said, yeah, that's what you used to play pool with. I said, I've had a lot of acoustics in my hand. He said, no. He said, you have a brain tumor. He said, you have a brain tumor. And he said, it's the size of a baseball. He said, it's the biggest one I've ever seen. And he said, it's not cancerous. He said, you don't have to do anything. You leave it alone. And he said, all it's going to do is kill you. And I said, time out. I said, I don't like door number 1. I said, I'll take door number 2 or door number 3, but that door number 1 killing me, that's off the table. That's. And then he told me that the only option was, he said, you're going to have surgery. He said, it'll be about 12 hours. He said, me and a neurosurgeon. He said, then you'll be in intensive care for about a week. And he said, then you'll have about a year where you don't feel good. And I said, okay. And so then I went out to the car, and I didn't really have a pity party, but I believe in playing on the square. I'm not going to cheat anybody at any game, but I will tell you now that if I could have figured out a way to cold deck this game, if I could have figured out a way to play some light, if I could have got some paper in on the game, I would have done anything to win. I was to the point that when it came to living or dying, I'm willing to cheat. But I approached my brain surgery the same way I do any game that I've ever covered a risk on. Which I think is a pretty smart way to do it, to be honest with you, because as a bridge player, when you play bridge at a real high level, you do everything you can to put off making a decision as long as you can to gain as much information as possible to know what the proper play is. So I went home to my wife, my girlfriend, and I couldn't tell her what had happened. I handed her a note, and I didn't have a pity party, but the next day I went down and saw the very best malpractice attorney in the city of Dallas. Walked in, and I said, I want to hire you for a couple of hours. He said, you were in a car wreck? And I said, nope. He said, you had adverse reaction to medicine? I said, nope. He said, you've had some doctor that performed some surgery or something didn't work right? I said, nope. He said, we're going to have a hard time winning this lawsuit. I said, you don't understand. I said, I don't want to sue anybody. I said, I'm going to have to go in for brain surgery. I said, and I need to know if these two guys know what they're doing. And I said, you're the best malpractice attorney in the city. I said, you know where all the skeletons are at, you know, the bones are buried. You can tell me if they're good or not. He said, in 35 years, I've never had anybody ever come in and want to do this. I said, well, until yesterday, I said, I didn't need you. So that's what he did. He did some research and told me they were good. But I did other things, too, that most people wouldn't think of from a gaming standpoint. I went at 2 o'clock in the morning. I took donuts and coffee to the neuro ICU unit to give to the nurses at 2 in the morning. And the reason why I did that is because I know at 2 in the morning, the bigwigs aren't there. You've got the working stiffs. And I found a nurse that had kind of a soft heart, and I was able to bend her ear. And I said, look, I just need to know about this neurosurgeon. I said, I know this is a neuro ICU unit. I know you deal with him every day. And what kind of a guy is he? She said, well, he's rough and he's tough. He's got a Napoleonic complex. It's his way or the highway. And she said, he's the best neurosurgeon in the city. I said, we'll get along just fine. So, and I figured it was like anything else. You only get one shot at something like this in brain surgery. So I didn't want to take a chance on getting the wrong guy, because the best thing I could do is do everything they told me to do and be sure that whoever I picked was really competent. It'd be like if you said you got to go play blackjack for $1 million. You're not just going to go pick any 4 random blackjack players. I'm going to make a couple of phone calls, and I'm going to get the best blackjack players around to play. And I can find them pretty easy, because I know people that know people. So that was my, but once again, if I had not had that bad doctor, because I had mentioned to him 2 years before I found out about that my hearing was going bad, he never bothered to check. He never did have me do an MRI or anything. So it was really, really stupid on my part, guys.
Interesting. And we will put a link to the TED Talk in our show notes, so people can go check that out.
And we want to thank you, Norman Beck. You have a book out, or that's in process, called Fly Like a Fox, and I'm enjoying it, and we hope to have you on sometime in the future, and we'll talk about what's in Sly Like a Fox.
Okay.
And thank you, Richard. Go out and hit lots of royal flushes, everybody. Good day.